If you've ever had knee pain that disappears with rest, you wait a few days, come back to training, and then it flares up again, you're not alone. I've seen this with hundreds of lifters, crossfitters, or people just looking to get back to daily activities. In this video, I'm going to break down the 5 biggest mistakes I see people make when it comes to knee pain and how to fix these mistakes so you're not constantly going around in a cycle of rest, go back to training, knee pain. Have you ever tried not speaking to anyone for 2, 3, 4, 5 days or a few weeks or a few months? There's loads of research on social isolation and how that is linked to poor communication skills. So essentially people who haven't been around anyone else for a long period of time, they come back and then they forget how to talk to people and communicate. And this is very similar to completely resting your knees, which is the first biggest mistake I see people make. Complete rest will make you weaker, less confident, and it will actually take you longer to get back to where you want to be. All the muscles around your knee, your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, everything is getting weaker and weaker and weaker while you completely rest your knee. Even though it's giving you some short-term pain relief, in the long term, it's not the best approach. So 2 really simple exercises to start to strengthen your knee. Number 1 is a foam roller bridge. So you're going to lie on your back, grab a foam roller, you'll need that. Feet flat on the foam roller, slight tuck your pelvis, so your hips are about half an inch off the floor. Hamstrings and calves should be working really hard. And you're going to hold this double leg variation for 30 to 60 seconds. Once you've done that, no rest, you're going to jump straight into a single leg wall sit. Now, if your knee pain is quite irritable and your knee's quite sore, then you want to start nice and high on the wall, so you can still get your quads working and get a nice quad pump, get some blood into there without any knee pain or minimal knee pain. So start nice and high on the wall and go for a 45 to 60 second hold on each leg. As you get more confident and you continue to build strength with your quads, then you can start to move further and further down the wall so you get a deeper bend on the knee. Do this in a superset, so foam roller bridge, straight into the single leg wall sit, and you can do 3 to 4 sets of this 2 to 3 times a week. So I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu last week. I was rolling with a guy who was previously a bodybuilder, and he did a lot of bodybuilding training where he isolated particular muscle groups, just trained his biceps on his own, triceps, quads, hamstrings, everything isolated. And when I was rolling with him, he was really stiff and he couldn't really coordinate any movements. And this ties into the second mistake, which is people are just stretching the painful area around the knee. So people are either stretching their quads or their hip flexors. Just like the bodybuilder, if you isolate particular areas, it's not going to improve how your whole body functions as a unit. So with knee pain, a lot of the pain is actually because your body can't offset load into other places because it lacks mobility at the hips or the feet and ankles. So 2 really simple drills to help improve hip and foot and ankle mobility. Number 1 for the hips is the scissor slide. So you're going to lie on your side, knees at 90 degrees, feet are going to go flat on the wall. So imagine you've got paint on the bottom of your feet, they're glued to the wall. Pop your hand on that top leg. Again, feet don't move. And then you're going to practice sliding that top knee over that bottom knee, forward and back. Do this nice and slow and controlled. Don't rush through this. It's a sensation exercise. You should feel a really nice opening sensation at your glutes, potentially the glutes working as well quite hard, and potentially some opening at your lower back as well. But this is just going to get everything moving in the hips, get everything feeling a lot better. So do 15 to 20 reps on one side, flip over, do the same on the other side, and you can run through this 2 to 3 sets. You can do this one daily, but at least 5 times a week minimum. Number 2 is going to focus on the foot, and this is called a pronation drill. So barefoot in a staggered stance, 1 foot forward, and all you're going to do is practice rocking that knee forward and back while maintaining or keeping heel contact on that front leg and maintaining big toe contact. So I want you to think about this like a steering wheel. So imagine your shin bone is a steering wheel, and when your knee or leg is straightened in that back position, you're turning your shin bone out, externally rotating it. Then as you let your knee come forward and potentially could travel over your toe, then you're turning the steering wheel inwards. So your shin bone will then internally rotate. And I want you to feel the difference here of pressure in your foot. When your leg is straight, the pressure should be in your heel. And then as you let that knee bend and it comes forward, you should feel the pressure change into the middle of your foot. So again, this is a sensation exercise. It's not a strength exercise. It's just feeling the difference between the pressure at the back of your foot and then into the middle of your foot as you bend that knee. Understanding the different types of foot pressures here is really going to affect how you walk, how you squat, how you do a lot of things day to day, which will then clean up how the knee is feeling. You can do 2 sets of 20 reps on each side. And again, I would do this daily, but minimum effective dose would be at least 5 times a week. When I used to play Sunday League when I was about 15 or 16, and my coach used to say something to me that I always remember. He'd always say, never give up, which is a bit of a cliche thing to say, but like usually we might have been like 1-0 down, 2-0 down, and we all kind of like drop our heads, kind of give up, be like the match is lost. In reality, it's probably 5 or 6-0, but give me a bit of slack here. We would just give up. And this really relates to avoiding all other lower body training when you've got knee pain. You get knee pain and then you think, oh, I can't train any of these other muscle groups. And mentally, you've given up already in your head. A bit like when you go 1 or 2-0 down in football. You drop your head, you think the game's over, and you don't try to do anything to win. And a lot of people do this with knee pain. Not because they're lazy a lot of the time, because they think they can't train any other leg muscles when they've got knee pain. But you can still train your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves, your abductors and adductors with minimal to no pain. The only thing that might cause you a bit of pain is training the quads, which again, I gave you an option at the start with a wall sit to start to train those. So we all know that someone who hates their job or who hates their life situation in general. And this person tends to compensate for that by either potentially going out and drinking and getting like really, really pissed, or they have some sort of coping mechanism, I'm going to call it. And this relates to fixing knee pain massively because people think that surgery is a quick fix. People think that they'll go in, they'll get surgery, they'll come out, they won't need to do any rehab or maybe like 1 or 2 weeks of rehab and they'll be fixed. They'll be able to walk pain free, all of this. For a lot of people, they don't need surgery, they need an effective rehab program. Hint, hint, first link in the description down below. They need an effective rehab program. So they need to get stronger, they need to get more mobile, they need to get more confident, which will then reduce their pain. And in most cases, surgery will actually, again, set you back a long way. ACL rehab after surgery, at least a year out. Knee replacement, 6 months to 12 months out. All these surgeries, people think this is a quick fix and they don't have to do any rehab and there's no effort. There's significantly more effort after a surgery than just getting an effective rehab program. And of course, some injuries do need surgery. Of course, if you tear your ACL, in a lot of cases you need surgery. But there's a lot of research coming out now with ACLs, for example, that if you only get a partial tear or a small tear, the ACL can heal itself with the correct rehabilitation and the outcomes are actually better than getting surgery. So just understand that surgery isn't a quick fix, and in a lot of cases, you don't need surgery, you just need an effective rehab program. So when I was younger and I was studying for my A-levels, I was heavily addicted to a video game called Skyrim, which I used to play on my computer. To cut a long story short, Skyrim is an amazing open world game where you have a character and you run around killing dragons, doing all sorts of stuff. But this character had stats. So you have a stat for archery, for fighting, for smithing, for magic, all these different things. And what was so addictive about the game was that you could track these stats, and over time you could improve these stats by doing certain missions or by doing certain tasks. And then you could level up your character. And this created this positive feedback loop where you continually wanted to get better. And this comes on to the last mistake that people make with knee pain, which is not testing their mobility and strength. And the reason this is a massive mistake is, number one, you don't know where your weaknesses are. And then number two, you don't know where to focus your efforts with rehab. For example, if you're really, really strong, but you lack mobility at your feet and at your hips, but all you're doing is getting stronger, then that's potentially why you're going around in circles with your knee pain, because you haven't assessed what's actually wrong. And therefore you're putting your eggs in the wrong basket when it comes to rehab every week. The other thing is you don't get into a positive feedback loop, because just like the character in Skyrim, if you actually test your mobility and strength and you have a number for strength exercise or a number for a mobility exercise, then you can measure improvement and it gets addictive. You can test your mobility and then after 3 or 4 weeks, you can retest it and go, oh, look, I've made an improvement there. Granted, it's not quite the same thing as playing a video game, but you get the idea. And therefore, it allows you to improve and get better. And you get into this loop where you want to improve and get better because this correlates to less knee pain.